Death is a universal experience. Everyone will die eventually, regardless of their background or circumstances. The October attack by Hamas put the Israeli army on high alert. In response, the Israeli forces attacked the Gaza Strip. By the time this video was made, the death toll had risen to almost 9,000 Palestinians, the majority of whom were women and children. During the Israeli attack on the Gaza Strip, several countries and groups, including Hezbollah, have vowed to threaten Israel. Troubling indicators are increasingly emerging along its northern border with Lebanon. Hezbollah has declared their stand with Hamas, and they have threatened to open a front to Israel's north. Hezbollah is not just any group with a small arsenal of weapons. In fact, they are one of the most heavily armed non-state groups in the world. Their leader Sayed Hassan has said the group has 100,000 fighters, and they possess more than 100,000 rockets today that can hit any target in Israel. Israel's Iron Dome would be overwhelmed by the number of rockets that Hezbollah possesses, potentially leading to the destruction of key Israeli targets, including their military bases and critical infrastructure. People in southern Lebanon are fleeing, causing massive traffic jams as they try to avoid a gruesome conflict that could potentially ignite the entire Middle East. Well, it's not only Hezbollah that is becoming involved in this conflict. Other countries such as the US, Iran, Egypt, and Turkey could also be drawn into this conflict, potentially escalating it into a much larger and more complex conflict. As challenging as the situation may seem in Gaza, it's important to remember that the Middle East is a region where circumstances can quickly go from bad to even more critical. Israel is right now entering northern Gaza with heavily armored vehicles, tanks and bulldozers, and bombing several places in northern Gaza, where they believe Hamas is located. On October 13th, the Israeli military told the 1.1 million residents of the northern half of the Gaza Strip to evacuate southward in preparation for the offensive. But since then, the Israeli army has been bombing in the southern region of the Gaza Strip. Israel is strategically pursuing smaller land operations and avoiding calling them as ground invasions, primarily due to the forces in the surrounding region, with Hezbollah being a concern. Hezbollah has already fired rockets at northern Israeli military targets, but it is nowhere near the massive numbers of missiles they have. Nor have Hezbollah entered the region with their special forces, or done anything major yet. Hezbollah hesitates to join the conflict with their full forces. Some states that if Hezbollah wanted to take advantage, it would have done so right after the Hamas operation, as Israel was still in a vulnerable position. But it seems like Hezbollah is hesitating, and there are different reasons for this. Opening a front from South Lebanon against Israel will justify Israel to destroy Lebanon. Hezbollah also fears the US involvement in the region, which holds them back. But they have also indicated that it may change its stance if Israel launches a major ground offensive into Gaza, as it sees the destruction of Hamas as a red line that can threaten its own security. If Hezbollah were to initiate a front in southern Lebanon against Israel, it could result in significant consequences for the Israeli military. This would make it harder for Israel to reach its objectives in the Gaza region. By the time of making this video, the Israel Defense Forces has called up its reserve, and a force of at least 350,000 awaits its order to begin a larger ground invasion of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Prime Minister has announced the second stage of the invasion against Hamas, and now remains the question of when, not if, the order for a large number of these troops to cross the border will come. Since the Israeli military is putting all of their focus on the region, well, that would make it hard to defend themselves in the northern region against Hezbollah. So Israel is in a vulnerable position, since it's surrounded by enemies that can open a front at any time. That would lead Israel searching for help from their allies, which would make the ongoing conflict even worse, and thousands, if not even millions, of civilians would get affected by this. Iran is definitely one of Israel's enemies in this region. The Israeli army has accused an Iranian armed group of supporting Hezbollah and carrying out attacks against Israel. Iran has continued to fund Hezbollah over the years, and while it's unclear exactly how much the organization has received, the US estimates it at hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Most of that goes to Hezbollah's military, and that figure includes weapons supplied by Iran, including an arsenal of drones and rockets. Some sources also suggest that Iran is funding Hamas with weapons. But why is Iran so interested in supporting groups with weapons and money? Iran has always been against the state of Israel, and since this conflict has blown up, Iran has indirectly tried to defeat Israel by supporting Hezbollah and now also Hamas. Although they keep supporting these groups, it seems more like that Iran is unlikely to attack Israel. As Hezbollah, Iran has also warned Israel of severe consequences from multiple fronts if Israel does not stop its relentless bombardment of Gaza. Despite the warnings that Iran has given to Israel, it appears more that Iran fears the risk of a harsh Israeli response. Well, Iran's statement of Israel is clear. It denies Israel the right to exist and refers to it not as a state, but as a Zionist entity. Even though Iran's chances of starting a war against Israel is low, they are still prepared. For instance, this banner in Iran's capital, Tehran, unveils their latest missile that had the range to reach Israel within 400 seconds. So it definitely looks like they have the capabilities to have a war against Israel, but they are holding back. Israel's biggest ally, the United States, has already deployed till this day around 1,000 troops to the Middle East to support Israel in the ongoing conflict and provide stability in the region. They have also sent aircraft carriers in the region, providing Israel with any weapon they need. The presence of the US in the region is definitely not unheard of before with conflicts like these. They take these actions to be ready if the conflict escalates further. But the issue is that Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran take it as a threat, which can cause even further escalation. And since the US has the right to be in the region, then what stops other countries from doing the same? Russia has also been involved in this conflict, where high-ranking Hamas members have been invited to a meeting with a senior Russian official. Russia sees it as keeping ties with both sides in the conflict. But Hamas' description of the meeting paints something different. They have praised Russia's effort to end Israel's crimes supported by the West. Some also state that Russia has been providing the weapons Hamas used against Israel, but there is no evidence for that. Russia says that unnamed forces are seeking to provoke an escalation, drawing as many other countries as possible. Who could those unnamed forces be? In fact, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has said, "Further escalation of the crisis is fraught with grave and extremely dangerous and destructive consequences. And not only for the Middle East region. It could spill over far beyond the borders of the Middle East." Turkey has also been out and showing clearly which side it is on. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has, since the bombing of the hospital on October the 17th, been firing criticism at Israel. He has praised Hamas as liberators who are fighting and protecting their land. But Turkey hasn't been showing any clear signs of sending troops or joining the conflict at all. This conflict has the potential to become a major war, unlike any conflict we've seen before. If more countries get involved and send their troops, it could make the conflict even bigger and possibly lead to a full-scale war. The key here is that if more countries stay away from getting involved in the conflict, it will remain localized within the region. Currently, Israel has increased its actions, which has left the nearby countries feeling frustrated. This has led the neighboring region to plan counterattacks against Israel. The US is forced to interact as well, which will cause a lot of death and destruction. The issue here is that it drags multiple countries into a bigger war, which makes a three-world war closer than ever before. But as it seems now, that is very unlikely, and will hopefully not happen in the near future. What also can cause destruction to the earth is if we decide to drain the Mediterranean Sea by building dams that stops the water from getting in. If that sounds interesting to you, then don't forget to watch this video about the insane plan to drain the Mediterranean Sea.